who will be the second quarterback drafted? That and more this week on the couch. Happy to be joined by Chad Reuter, talk all things draft. This wasn't necessarily a question a few months ago, but it is a question now. Is it a question? Who is going to be the number 2 quarterback off the board in the draft?
I don't think it's a question. I think Shedeur Sanders is going to be the guy. I think Cleveland or the Giants will snap him up. And, I think a lot of people will point to the Giants and Jets and say, hey, they signed this guy and this guy and this guy. And then I'm like, okay, that's usually just been a precursor to drafting a rookie, as we've seen with Michael Penix last year, with a bunch of other examples where they, sign big guys to big contracts and then draft a guy in the top 10. It happens regularly. So I think Sanders is probably a good fit for the Giants at number 3. The fact that I've always likened him to a Jameis Winston in terms of a vibe, but their games aren't exactly the same, but like that kind of vibe. And, he's right there in the building now. And it would be, it'd be great for him to be able to come in there and do his thing. And so I just think he's going to be one of the top 3 picks, most likely.
Yeah, which is confetti for New England. Woo!
Right.
I mean, that means they'll get Carter or Hunter. So that's big for them. But do you think that Sanders is going number 2 or number 3? Because in this draft, we can talk more about that. In this draft, he deserves to go number 2 or number 3. Or do you think it's more quarterback desperation for these teams, leaving aside what you did say, which is that Sanders can handle the New York spotlight? We know that.
Yeah. I think he, people like to pick apart quarterbacks quite a bit. And look, it's the biggest position in the game, and you're going to get picked apart. That's part of the deal. And some people, I think the whole Deion Sanders thing, and people that'll grade against some people. But the fact is, he's a really talented player. I can't wait to see him get into an offense where they A, have a running game, and B, the offensive line was better in Colorado this year, but it's still wasn't great. But a lot of times he ended up in positions where he was 3rd and 10, 3rd and 15, and he had to sit there and hold on to the ball forever to try to find a guy downfield. And I think if you get him into offense with a running game, a little more quick passing, so he can get the ball out a little more quickly and then go downfield, to a guy like Malik Neighbors, I mean, what more can you want than that guy? So I think he can be even better than he was in college, if you give them the opportunity to grow. And I don't think I think he can be a leader on a team too. And I think so. I think people are not giving him enough credit for that. I think in most years he would still be a top 5 pick.
Yeah, I think that you bring up a good point, that Deion being his dad. I mean, number one, that he knows how to prepare like a professional.
Yeah.
But I don't know if people understand how influential Deion Sanders is outside of football. I mean, within football, but even outside of football, and how having the aura, you mentioned Jameis Winston, having that Sanders aura as a leader for this generation of players, we might be underestimating that, because quarterback is still a leadership position. I like
Absolutely.
I say teams take on the personality of their head coach and quarterback, and it might not be a bad thing for your team to have a Sanders personality.
Yeah, absolutely. And, he can run a little bit more than, some other guys too. And he doesn't have to a lot of times, and it's not his elite thing, but he brings that to the table if you need it. But he's a pocket guy. And like you said, he is a leader. He does lead this team. And I think people underestimate that a little bit. And he's so accurate from the pocket. I mean, the anticipation he throws with is really, really great. And I think that's the thing that is kind of overlooked with him. So I like him. I think he would be a pick in all years. Now, is there a risk? Absolutely. There's a risk with all of these guys in this. Well, there's a risk with all quarterbacks, really. Mm-hmm. The top quarterback prospect I've seen doing this 25 years is Andrew Luck, and that things happen. And but I think the Giants need a leader. They need a dynamic playmaker, and so I think Sanders is it for them. If the Browns don't take it.
Right, right. So this is good. I mean, this is locating where his stock is after there's been plenty of mocks that had him sliding. And,
Yeah.
you know, if he does get past, and Carter and Hunter are both compelling enough players that it makes
Yeah,
sense that a
possible.
team might
Yep.
just say, like, how could we pass on this guy? We're not sure,
Yep.
sure about Shedeur. But, and the other, I just want to, to add one more punctuation mark to this. Every quarterback can be a bust, but if we're every player can be a bust. But if we're
Yes,
strictly talking
exactly.
about quarterback, it is an emotional, spiritual position as much as it is a
Yeah.
physical position. And we
Yep.
know that Sanders isn't going to be overwhelmed. We know
Correct.
that. And some quarterbacks, the bust factor is, probably like Trey
Yep.
Lance, Anthony Richardson might be one we're watching right now, Zach Wilson, where
Ryan Leaf.
right, they're just overwhelmed. He's not going to be overwhelmed.
No.
So, part of the subtext of my opening question is Jaxson Dart, right?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe
Yeah.
3 months ago, we wouldn't necessarily be talking about Jaxson Dart as a first round pick. Now, do you think that when we talk about the draft, and we're talking about it in two different ways. We're talking about like what we think, but what we think will happen. So there's two levels to this. Do you think
Yeah.
Dart will be a first rounder, and do you think he should be a first rounder?
Yes, I think he will be a first rounder. Even in my first mock after the Super Bowl, I had the Jets trading into the first round to get him. I just think he's a guy that, let's face it, he looks like an NFL quarterback, right? And that still carries some weight with NFL teams that the guy
Mm-hmm.
looks like an NFL quarterback. But I know he's a hard worker. I know he does a lot of the things you want to do. He throws a tight ball. He doesn't have elite arm strength, but it's plenty fine. He can operate an offense, and some people might, not love the offense that they ran in Ole Miss in terms of showing how it could work in the pros. But look, he can do a little bit of everything. Would I take him in the first round? Maybe not. But I think, like I said, it's such an important position. Like, even if you sign a veteran like a Sam Darnold or Russell Wilson or whoever, those guys sign contracts that are not long-term contracts. And you need position, you need a young guy at the position. And if you think Dart has enough skills along with the work ethic to be the leader of an offense, then you take him in the first round and you worry about other positions at later times. So I'm thinking he's going to be a first round pick. Look, the Jets might take him at 7, or he might fall into the middle of the round where like the Steelers or the Seahawks or somebody like that will take him. It's not clear, and it's never really clear on some of these quarterbacks until the day of. Just some years,
Right.
it's just the way it is.
Right.
But he's going to be a first round pick. I'm pretty sure.
Leap of faith, always leap of faith. Okay, and
Yeah,
then we get to let's just round out this quarterback. Let's step through these guys. Jaylen Milro,
yeah,
is there is I mean, he got invited to the draft, right? That was one of the big headlines this week. He got invited to the
yeah,
draft.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and that's obviously based on something. And
Right.
we've watched guys sit in the green room. But
That's
again,
right.
similar kind of question, like what's your prediction and what's your take on if you were advising a team, what you would tell them?
Well, I think he's very much not a totally similar player, but a similar story to Jalen Hurts in terms of a guy that shows you some stuff from the pocket when he is in a good place. Is not the most accurate guy in the intermediate game. He just hasn't had that yet, but that's something he's going to have to work on. But he's a playmaker, obviously, great athlete. He's done a lot of great things. Didn't have a great receiver core in Alabama this year. It was not there he would have loved Isaiah Bond to stick around there. But again, he's got some things to work on. And I think you get him in the second round, get him in the early third round. You try to do what you can to make him a complete player. And look, you're not going to worry about character with him. He's going to work hard. He's a smart kid. He knows the game. So look, if you get him in the second round, you like him in the second round. In my mock drafts, I don't do trades in the second and third and fourth round because my editors would kill me if I did that. But I could see a team making a move for him in the second round or something like that, or into the second round to get him. Him and Tyler Shook and some of these other guys in that area. And I think, but he's got a real chance with the way that offenses, you have to build your offense around him. You know what I mean? Like, you have to be able to do that. And some teams are not into that. The Ravens have shown that you can make it work. Other teams have shown you can make it work. So, but I do like him, generally as a prospect. You get him in round 2 and you see what you can get.
And I just want to say for the record, as a Steelers fan, if the Steelers take Jaxson Dart, I'm not going to be happy.
Yeah.
If the Steelers take Jaylen Milro, yeah.
Well, I
if
tell
it's
you what,
Milro,
yeah, but here's the thing. It was very interesting that they traded out of the second round to get DK Metcalf. So a team that had no quarterback. So it's really interesting to me that either they thought the guys weren't worth it, in that route, like the Milroes and the Quinn Ewers and Shook and all these guys were not worth that. And they're willing to wait until round 3 to get a young guy. Maybe they always thought Aaron Rodgers was coming. I don't know. But like, I thought that was very interesting that they didn't stick in the second round to get a quarterback.
Yeah. Look, if Aaron Rodgers skews the Steelers' future in a material way negatively or positively, I mean, it's accidental. He won't be the first team who did that. I think it's hilarious. Yeah. I think it's hilarious that the Broncos, who were okay, everything's okay now, but he ruined the Broncos. He never was even on their roster.
Right.
And he ruined the Broncos. And if the Steelers, let's say the Steelers pass on Jaylen Milro because they thought they were going to get him and they don't have a second round pick and like Milro is still on the board when the Steelers pick. And we'll watch that. I love the way that the draft intertwines all the stories, like all the sliding doors.
And by the way, I will never say that Aaron Rodgers ruins anybody, because anybody who's ever talked with Aaron Rodgers knows what he is. So if they rely on that, that's their fault. That's not his fault. Like that's no, honestly, like we've seen it. So like you have to know, and that's a risk that teams take when they wait for a guy like that, a talented guy. I mean, I'm in Wisconsin, so I've seen him. I know what he's capable of, and it's been great when he was here. But it,
yeah. Well, look, it's and the thing,
and look, I had the Steelers taking Kyle McCord in the third round. Mm-hmm. And is there an appreciable difference between Tyler Shook, Jaylen Milro, Kyle McCord? Time is only going to tell on that. Sure. So I think they're probably comfortable saying, hey, if we like Jaxson Dart, we take him in the first. Otherwise, we'll wait until the third and maybe trade up and see if we can get a guy. What do we do? But that's what they're going to do.
It's a Steeler show. No, and the reason I like Milroe is, well, I mean, like you said, at least saw last year with Fields. I mean, the Steelers can alter their offense for a quarterback whose leverage on the defense also is running. But like Jalen Hurts, Milroe, I love the story that Bill O'Brien told him, like, you're not a quarterback. You're not good enough to be a quarterback. So much like Jalen Hurts, he's already had to deal with the universe telling him you're not good enough, which again is one of the things that undoes a quarterback in the pros, is for the first time having to really ponder, like, am I not good enough? Like failure. And they've already had to deal with that. So I know that he's going to be mentally tough and resilient about the struggles as you work your way up the beginning of the mountain of being an NFL quarterback.
For sure. And you'll note that the Steelers did not re-sign Justin Fields, though. Like they could have.
Right.
And so what does that tell you about what they want at that position and what Justin Fields is, and why the Jets will probably still take a quarterback despite sending Justin Fields?
Right.
I mean,
right.
Everybody gets excited about signing a free agent, but the other team let him go. And sometimes it's for cap reasons or whatever, but that wasn't the case in Pittsburgh. So
right. But there's always Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold.
It happens. And second acts happen. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You never know. Yep.
So we'll see. The last quarterback, obviously, we got to mention Cam Ward, who's going number 1 to Tennessee.
Yep.
I mean, I think we can say that definitively. You can say that definitively now?
I think so.
Yeah. I mean,
I said it definitively in January. So, like, I'm good.
Awesome.
I've been there for the whole time. Yeah, I've been there the whole time. To me, it's him and everybody else in this class.
Yeah, and that's fair.
In my opinion.
And that's fair because of quarterback desperation, quarterback thirst. So there'll be even more interesting to hear answer this question, Chad, because I saw some analysis that said, like, well, I don't even know if he would have been in the top 6 in last year's quarterback class. Where would you put him roughly in last year's quarterback class?
To me, he's sort of a mix between Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels. So I think he would have been right in that area with them. Because I think he has the experience that both those guys have, which I think we're seeing, and we've seen this in the past too. There used to be a big discussion about whether you take a senior quarterback or an underclassman quarterback. That used to be a discussion. And now so many underclassmen come out that's not even, because you have to go with the talent at some level. But when you've got a guy like Ward that has so much experience, he's seen a lot. He's seen a lot of defenses. He works from the pocket. He can work from different arm angles. And yes, does he make weird decisions at time when he needs to make a play? Absolutely. But guess what? So does Josh Allen. So does Patrick Mahomes still. So does Patrick Mahomes still at times. And that's part of being a playmaker. And I think he's a solid leader. He doesn't get too up or too down. So I think, honestly, he's right in the mix as one of the top. He's been in the top, 3-4 guys. I don't know that he's not going to be a better pro than Drake May. I mean, we don't know that at all right now. Nothing against Drake May, but there's a lot of uncertainty yet. So I think he's right in the mix with those guys. And honestly, like if you look at his tape and you look at Caleb Williams's tape from his last year, are they that different? I don't know that. I don't know that. So just watch the film and you'll see what I'm talking about. And so anyway, he's right up in that mix for me.
That's great. No, that's a great endorsement, and it's explained well. And we'll Brian Callahan, man. I mean, and all because Joe Milton beat the Bills in Week 18. Although I guess Tennessee would have still been number 2, and New England probably. Maybe they would have tried. Yeah, well, again, the sliding doors, right? Always the sliding doors in the NFL. Right. And I think you're right to bring up experience. We're back to the Bill Parcells quarterback formula, right? The number of starts matter. But that makes sense because it's reps, and it's reps that get you prepared better than any virtual reality rep could. And then again, that gets back to that. Are you going to break like mentally, emotionally in the NFL because it gets a lot harder?
Well, and I think, go ahead. I think it's also reps, it's experience, but it's also time given you have to add time given in the NFL to learn the NFL game as part of that equation. If you're Anthony Richardson and you've played very few starts and then you're starting immediately, that's a big learning curve. And it doesn't always work out. And so like if you get a guy that doesn't have as many starts, but you give him a couple of years to learn the game, to get up to the speed of the game, give him some reps in game, give him, you got to let a guy grow, especially with these young guys that, like you said, he's 20, 21 years old and they're going right into it's tough. So I think there's an equation there with college experience plus, pro experience, even if it's not playing every snap.
Right. And maturity. I mean, there's an argument. I mean, come on, we can all reflect on our lives. Like imagine you got the biggest opportunity of your life at 20 or 21.
Right, exactly.
Or you got it at 22 or 23 and how you would handle it differently. But what's most interesting to me is I think the smart agents, the people advising a quarterback, they have to be picking up on this, right? So with an NIL, you can do your own quarterback development program.
Right.
And playing under different coaches and different systems, it's your program. Like you're designing your degree in quarterbacking. You can stay in college and learn another system under another program, another coaches, but also
older, more mature,
and support your family and
get
still
a boatload of cash, by the way, and get a boatload of cash and
get more than you're going to get on your rookie deal. I mean, signing bonus aside, like you're actually getting paid more in college now. I'm talking about even if you have like a top 5, if you're the quarterback at a big program, I don't know what that's worth right now in NIL terms. It's only going to keep going up just like the NFL salary cap.
Yeah.
So I would imagine that we're all the way back full circle, Chad. Because I remember when the Steelers got Ben Roethlisberger, one of the things was they were like, "Ooh, junior quarterback." 20 years ago, it's ancient history. 20 years ago, it was like, "Oh man, I don't know about an underclass quarterback at Bill Parcells school." And I think we've returned full circle now to, with the rare exception of a quarterback that you're just so overwhelmingly talented.
Yeah.
Like you said, Andrew Luck, or maybe like Trevor Lawrence, how he was regarded.
Yeah, Caleb Williams was never going back to school for any amount of money. It just wasn't.
Yeah. But outside of those guys,
Yeah.
Like, you should be designing your own quarterback development, like handpicking your coach. I mean, like, I want to play for this coach, and I want to play for this coach. I want to play for Lincoln Riley. You know what I mean? Like, I want to play for these coaches. And
I don't get into telling guys what they should do when they come out or not come out, because there are so many factors involved, family stories. Some guys just, you know, all this stuff happens. And so I don't get into that. But the fact is there's going to be a couple of quarterbacks taken in the second, third round that probably should have went back. And
Quinn Ewers.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, I don't want to get on people because, again, I don't know I know some of the background and some of the things, but it's a difficult decision.
Sure.
So, but I think if that happens, I think more and more, you're right. Guys are just going to come back and say, look, I can make myself into. Cam Ward was not a first round pick coming into this year.
Right.
Last year, JJ McCarthy, definitely not. Bo Nix, definitely not. They've made themselves into that last year. And you're going to see more of that in the future. Drew Aller made a great call, come back, Penn State. Great call to come back. He's got all the physical tools. If he's got one more year, he had a nice bowl game. If he can build on that and keep going, he's going to be picked very high. And so you're going to see even more of that in the future. I agree.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. I mean, there's so many things that have changed
Yeah.
since you and I, this is my
Yeah.
moment to say, you folks, if you don't know Chad Reuter, and I don't know why I have never had you. I think I've never had. My brain is so foggy at this point, but we go way back, way back. You can find his work at NFL.com, and there's no better draft team than Chad Reuter and Lance Zierlein. Period.
Appreciate that.
That's why the NFL trusts you all with the draft evaluations and your draft content there. But going all the way back, Chad, you were one of the people that when I first started showing up at All-Star games and things like that, you were one of the people that without hesitation was like, hey, like, what can I do to help? Like, what can I teach you? Or hey, welcome. And I was shocked. I was really shocked. Because and this really goes back to I went to my first Shrine game in 2006, and I met John Murphy there, and I was shocked at how generous everybody was, and there was this sense of if you're here, I'm here to teach you. What can I? How can I? I remember getting to meet C.O. Bricado and talking to C.O. Bricado. Legend, absolute legend. And being just amazed at how generous everybody was. And football is hyper competitive.
Yeah.
And America is hyper competitive. And there's lots of things like, man, Chad, I just thanks to Charles Charchian, couch favorite, learn about cooperative board games where instead of competing, you all come together to try to accomplish something. And in football, in the football world, it is just the code that everybody helps each other and pulls each other up. Has that been your experience? Talk about that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I remember meeting you and Cecil Lammy at the Texas First Nation All-Star game in El Paso, and not long after that, I'm driving with Cecil down to that game, to go see it again, like the next year, the year after, one of those 2 years. I mean, it's a very lot of camaraderie. Your buddy Matt Waldman and I have known each other for many years as well, and it's a really good group. We can all help each other, but have different opinions. That's the great thing. You can respect each other's opinion, not necessarily agree, but that makes it more interesting for people to watch and to try to learn and see that there's no one answer to this stuff. But if you and I can just sit here and talk like we've known each other for 20 years, then we get to some interesting stuff, and the people hopefully will find interesting. So and honestly, 20 years ago, I went and I introduced myself to a lot of NFL teams, and 95% of them were like, yeah, let's talk. I've seen your stuff. And, they're willing to. Now, are they going to give you secrets? No. But if they see you have I was told by a GM once, everybody has a resume. What you need is the passion. And so if you have the passion, if you're willing to put in the work, and different guys from teams and don't get into their business trying to, get secrets out of them, just talk to them about the game, then a lot of guys are really willing to do that. And it's really a great part of I was surprised by that when I first got into it. It's a lot more collegial than you would expect.
Yeah, and what you described that I really want to put a punctuation mark on is not only are we not seeing each other as threats or competitors.
Yeah.
You're saying like we can learn from each other. Like I can actually, by like reaching out to help you, I can become better.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
it speaks for itself. So you mentioned this because, you're working at NFL.com and you mentioned teams and how, hey, if you're not sizing them up for something and you're just approaching them like a peer, there's things that open up. And obviously you are seeing the draft and the draft process from a different point of view than most people. What do you think is one of the biggest misconceptions out there about the draft or the draft process or how teams approach it, or just, something that people out there believe, but you could say like, that's not true.
Yeah, well, I think it's, it's funny. I was thinking about this morning a bit in terms of how everybody thinks you put out a mock draft and that's the only thing that you think can possibly happen on draft day. And that's not the case. There are so many scenarios that can happen. And teams don't even necessarily know what they're going to do until the week before, just depending on who's running things, how it goes. Like it's a system that, and that's why a lot of times, like my last mock draft, my 7-round mock draft comes out the Friday before the draft. So I don't get any of the last minute intel. I don't get it. So like, it's not about like how many guys you get right in the first round or whatever. It's really about seeing how the draft could play out in terms of where players generally fit in the draft, who is good value at different spots and things like that. And I talked to a GM at the combine this year, and he goes, look, there are so many factors in how a guy does. It's not about whether you're right or wrong. And, you just have to follow your process, trust your own process. And that gets overused now, but the fact that is what it is. Like, and to be honest, like a lot of people are insider guys are paid to go get teams to give them information. And my job is to follow my own process to create this information, to trust my own eye as a football scout to see where guys could go, knowing that teams may have a totally different point of view. But in the end, you have to trust your own eye. And so I think just because a team says they like a guy doesn't mean A, they're going to take them, and B, that they're going to be right, because everybody makes mistakes. Plenty of great coaches have made bad calls on personnel. And they know a lot more about football than I do in a lot of ways. But I can see when a guy has potential and doesn't, and sometimes a coach / GM is not able to separate that as much, or maybe overthinking the process. So teams are not always right. Media people are not always wrong. There's a mix of them. There's a quantum uncertainty in the universe. And that comes into play when you're talking about how guys finish. Situations are so important. Coaching changes after year one of a rookie can really screw up a guy's career. There's so many factors involved. So I just like having fun. The mock drafts are big puzzles, trying to figure out team needs and where the best value of a player is, and things like that. So there's no true answer, but it's fun, and football is a great game, and it's just a pleasure to be part of the thing. And I a lot of people will look at this and say, oh, you know what you're talking about because this guy said this. I'm like, well, we'll see. And then we'll also see in 3 years whether that guy turns out to be as good as the team thought he was going to be.
Yeah.
And so, there's just a lot of people being a little over zealous about their opinions and not understanding that they could be wrong, including myself.
Yeah. Well, just inquisitive. Sure. We're always learning. Just trying to be inquisitive, and everything is a learning opportunity. But I'll mention Matt Waldman again. Like, there should be a little counter on my show. There should be a little counter of how many times Matt Waldman gets mentioned. Ding, ding.
Get your rookie scouting portfolio. Get your rookie scouting portfolio right now. It's available. See, I got mine.
See. Yeah, and no one's paying you to say that. You're just saying that because it's good. Well, and if you're at 28 minutes into the show and you're listening to me and Chad talk, and you obviously are intellectually engaged by football, then you need to see it from Matt Waldman's perspective. But Matt Waldman wrote an article about 15 years ago, so called "The Great Emotional Divide," and look it up right now if you haven't read it, folks. The Great Emotional Divide, and it's just about how. And you mentioned quantum uncertainty. I love that. Yeah. That's exactly. See, you were destined. I'm gonna have to have you back regularly on the couch. I don't know why it took so long. If you're saying quantum uncertainty, then you understand why we're here today. But he describes in the Great Emotional Divide how becoming a professional football player, you have to undergo a change, mind, body, soul commitment that you don't know how you're going to react to that. And this is why, it's more comforting to take someone like Shedeur Sanders. Let's call back to that. Where he has at least some idea, but most of these guys, there's a threshold. It's like purifying. Like, what are you actually really made of when you take that next step up? You get to the final level that they don't even know, and that's why there's some can't miss players that miss. I think it is that it's a crucible. Becoming a professional football player, the NFL, and guys, their souls just react to it differently. And teams, it's more of a intangibles kind of approach. But I would guess the best personnel departments know how to identify that, or at least take a guess, like not just be agnostic and be like, well, we can't know. But it's like with Vinny Serrato. I know Vinny Serrato is like a punchline, but I know there was like a story that Vinny Serrato, I can't remember who it was, but like he had dinner with the player and he was just like, I'm not going to take him I'm not going to take him. Like just something inside you says like, I've been around football and I don't know what it is. So I love highlighting that human part of it. Okay, let's get to some more like red meat stuff about this draft. Can Travis Hunter really be a two-way player? Like, can we really have the first guy that plays like 60-70% of the snaps on both sides of the ball?
I would say probably not both sides, especially to start. But I think he could be a 40-40 guy. I think he can be a guy that you can put at cornerback depending on your matchup. It's going to be determined by matchup if the team is smart. Yeah, we need a big guy that could go up against a big receiver, a clutch receiver for the other team. We put him outside, work him out. And by the way, we're going to give him quite a few snaps on offense because the dude is I don't know that I've seen better hands or ball skills on a receiver.
I mean, he's the clear number one wide receiver.
He's top five.
No disrespect to Pat McMillan.
What's that? What's that?
I would say I would say he's the best. I would say he's the best receiver in this class.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
if you just
he's the best corner and the best receiver.
He's the yeah. Thank you.
Yes, there's no question.
Okay, what would you do? So I mean, if the team that takes Travis Hunter called you up and said, "Okay, Chad Reuter, Mr. NFL.com guy, tell us how should we deploy him, at least, like what should the plan be for him?"
Well, I think you have to look at your current roster, right? And you have to understand where your strengths and weaknesses are. If you have two solid veteran cornerbacks that you like, I think you can use him as a third guy to start off. And look, injuries happen. So you want him to play because you might need him at some point pretty quickly during his rookie year on defense. So I would 100% play him as a third corner. And he could play a slot, honestly. Like, I wouldn't be afraid to put him in the slot at all. So I would get him experience. Like I said, 40% of snaps, 35 to start off with, maybe just to see how he handles it. And then you got to get him a set of plays on offense. You have to. And you have to look, he could come in kind of like Xavier Worthy did with the Chiefs this year. I think early in the year, they used him a little more sparingly. As the year comes on, he gets involved a little bit more, quick passes, then downfield. And I think he could do both. And by the way, like, if he could stay at 180 to 185 pounds rather than playing at 170 or whatever he actually played at this year, he's going to be even more dangerous. So like he's it for me. Typically, I would say if I didn't like Cam Ward as much as I did, I would say the Titans should just take Hunter and forget about it. But I really like Cam Ward, so I'm fine saying that. But Cleveland, look, Abdul Carter, I really like Abdul Carter, but like at some point you got to take Hunter. And so I don't know. He's a unicorn. Remember, the Deion Sanders went 5th in that draft. And 3 of the guys ahead of him were Hall of Famers. So like you can't really blame teams for waiting until 5th, but Tony Mandris, we won't talk about that again, being from Wisconsin. But Derek Thomas, Barry Sanders, Troy Aikman. And Deion's 5th in that list. So like if Travis Hunter goes 4th, these guys don't have any excuses, I don't think.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, I think that reading between the lines, when you're saying, hey, Cam Ward, I mean, you're high on Cam Ward. And if the Cam Ward really was the quarterback that people are saying, like, well, I don't know if he would even been in the top 6 last year. Well, then you take Travis Hunter, but
Yes.
Cam Ward
Yes.
gives you that chance.
Yes.
And yeah, this is exciting though. Every time, and you already gave us one of the pieces of the puzzle, Shedeur Sanders, and
Yeah.
I think that it's reasonable for him to go to the Giants or Browns. And if the Browns take Carter, if the Browns are looking at the Texans with Anderson and Hunter and saying,
Yeah.
let's do that with
Yeah.
Carter and Myles Garrett,
Yeah.
then you get Hunter with Mike Vrabel. I really want Hunter to end up with Mike Vrabel.
Yeah. It'll be something.
I feel like Vrabel's the head coach that can get the most out of him. I feel like Vrabel's head coach that's not going to be limited by, well, you can't do that, because I think he's a positive thinker and he's like, let's see what we can do. And they have 2 corners, exactly the scenario you
Right.
said.
Right.
So he can start out as the slot corner.
Did
And
Mike Vrabel do everything he could with the receivers he took in Tennessee, though?
I mean, was it Mike Vrabel or was it Arthur Smith?
I don't know. I'm just saying, like,
yeah, I mean, that's fair. I'm just trying to say, like, as far as seeing the possibilities of a two-way player or understanding that,
yeah.
there aren't any unwritten rules. When it's someone like Travis Hunter, there aren't any unwritten rules about how you can deploy him, when you can deploy him. Like, hey, like, whatever your plan is for him, how about he plays every snap of every drive that matters in the fourth quarter? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, let's see if he can just be out there. Like, let's give it a shot. Let's see, because we haven't had somebody who can do this. And I don't care what they did with Deion Sanders or Amp Bailey or Charles Woodson. This is Travis Hunter. And let's see what we can do with Travis Hunter. It's a different time.
Exactly.
Back in the day, I'm going to mention someone else, Russ Landy, who's like the OG self-made football scout. Like the dude who like went to teams, like you said, go to teams and said, like, here's what I do. I remember we had him on Draft Guys TV as our expert, and I asked him, who's your surprise first round pick? This is 2008, Chad. I said, who's your surprise first round pick? And he said, Dwayne Brown. That pick ended up being a pretty good pick.
Yeah, it was a pretty good pick.
Yeah, and he nailed it. Who's your surprise first round pick for this year?
Well, there's usually, 3 or 4 guys that, or maybe not that many, that end up going first round that people don't really consider until the very end of the process. And one of them for me is Isaiah Bond, the receiver from Texas. Very few people putting him in the first round. I put him in the first round in my latest mock, because, and the last 2 mocks, I think. I go through these iterations so much, I can't even remember what I did yesterday.
I hear you.
A month ago. But Isaiah Bond is a phenomenal after the catch threat and deep threat. Matthew Golden, his teammate, may go ahead of him because Golden was really the guy that carried that offense this year in Texas when Bond wasn't available for whatever reason. But Bond's after the catch ability is special. And I think a team like the Bills, like the Rams, somebody that could really use that kind of special talent is going to take him in the first round, because that doesn't come along too often. So I liked him better than I liked Hollywood Brown coming out. I liked him better than a lot of guys that get picked at the end of the first round. Now he's not the biggest guy, and that hurts some guys. Some big guys end up getting taken late, even though they're not as good a receiver. But Bond is one guy. Jonah Sewanaya from Arizona, the offensive lineman, is another guy. He's been on some first, but not a lot. He's another guy that could go to Detroit and just like continue to roll over. That offensive line will continue to roll over people if he goes. And then Arante Ursary from Minnesota is a guy that would fit certain teams very well. Not everybody will want to pick him in the first round, but like the Chiefs, he's a perfect body fit for them at left tackle. And maybe Houston, if they think he's the guy to take over. Well, Cam Robinson hasn't stayed healthy and he wasn't great. So they signed him, but like, that's not a sure thing. So I think those are the guys that I think are the guys that aren't in as many mock drafts as they should be in the first round.
Yeah. And I love it because you're making mock drafts. I remember when I used to do mock drafts as part of my job. And if you're doing a mock first round, and like you said, 2 or 3, if you're not putting 2 or 3 or 4 names that aren't in most mock first rounds. You're not doing it right.
Right.
You're not actually trying to pick the first round.
Right.
Like there's never been a first round where all of the 32 players were players that
Exactly.
everyone said it was going to go in the first round. It just never happened. So you got to at least try to pull some out and have some sort of story as to why. And you gave a good story about Bond. And what's funny about Bond, and I'm not trying to pick on Todd McShay when I say this.
Mm-hmm.
He probably doesn't care what I think anyway. But I think it was Todd McShay who put out a clip of Golden and look at the movement skills on Golden. This is why he was.
Yeah.
And Bond was at the top of the screen, looking like a mirror image of
Yeah.
Golden, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now you can tell me, you can answer this question, Chad, or you can say as an answer, this is just an unfair question. And is Jermaine Burton scaring teams off of Isaiah Bond?
I wouldn't think so. Jermaine Burton's a totally different type of receiver. I liked him coming out, but he's not what Isaiah Bond is in terms of suddenness. That's the word with Isaiah Bond that I keep coming back. He's so sudden. And that wasn't
what about character? What about football character?
Yeah, and that's going to be the issue. Do you take a chance on that? And there's a reason Matt Golden was the guy and Isaiah Bond was not the guy this year, right? And that's why teams may value Golden over Bond. But at some point, you have to take a chance on the talent. And that's one reason, like, look, I say Isaiah Bond fully with the knowledge that teams may not like that football character and he may go late round 2. That is completely possible. But like you said, you have to take chances on some of this stuff. And what people, when the way I approach things is I look for things that other people aren't talking about, whether it's a certain trade, and sometimes I look smart doing that. And sometimes I look dumb. And that's part of the game. And that's part of the reason we're doing it. But people need to expand their horizons on what they think is possible and not possible, because guys have larger ranges in which they are possibly to be picked than most people expect. Like I remember when the Chiefs traded up for Trent McDuffie, and Brett Veach went on the podium and he said, our models showed that he wasn't going to be there. And we were surprised we're going to be there. And that shows you the bias in everybody, not just the Chiefs or anybody else, but the bias, the internal bias that people have, their value of a player limits their expectancy on what kind of range a guy can. So I try to expand that range a little bit and say, hey, it's possible this guy does not go first round. He goes late too. Kingsley Suamataia from BYU, the offensive tackle, a lot of people thought the Chiefs would take him in round 1. And I put him in round 2 because I thought that's what I saw on tape and that's where I thought. And then like a guy like Roger Rosengarten, who I thought could be a first round pick, he goes late too. So that happens all the time. And it's really interesting. And that's for a lot of reasons. It's getting back to something else we talked about. The difference between a late first round pick and a late second round pick is an element of risk more than talent. So that's why you see DK Metcalf going late too. You saw Devin Hester went in the middle of the second round, not because he wasn't first round athlete or talent, because teams didn't know where to play him. And he never really found a position in the NFL, but he became the best kick returner of all time. So that's the kind of stuff that separates late first and late second round picks. So Isaiah Bond is definitely one of those guys, 100% one of those guys. But he's so explosive with the ball. And honestly, I want the Bills to take him so bad because they traded out to let the Chiefs take Xavier Worthy last year.
Why not?
6 receptions for 85 yards and a touchdown in the AFC Championship game against you. That's gotta be in their minds. So we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, we'll see. Now, I just want to go back to Bond and Burton really quick and try to tease this apart, because at this time last year, you might have watched Burton, and like you said, they're different prospects, but said like this guy's good.
Yeah,
I mean he's doing it against good players. He's in he's in good programs and he's doing it, but it was pretty widely known. There's Bob McGinn, the great Bob McGinn articles and other things out there where scouts are talking off the record, and that it was pretty widely known that Burton, there was a risk what would the word be? Like the light-hearted, like a knucklehead. That he's a knucklehead, right?
Yeah.
So if that's like a 4 out, and even like specific things were kind of out there about him. If let's say if Burton is like a 4 or a 5 out of 5 on the character risk scale, where would you put Bond based on what you hear?
Oh, I don't know. To be honest, Sig,
I was going to say, no, it's good. And this is, let me interject. And this is a point where you say, like, I don't like this kind of, I don't even like to look at players like this. And I don't think it's fair. Go ahead.
It is. And I think one of the things that gets teams in trouble is focusing too much on that. Now, there's certain kinds of characteristics that you don't want to take on. Absolutely. But like, you know, the Steelers just traded a second-round pick to get DK Metcalf, who went in the late second round because of some of this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And this, you know, and he's not in his prime. I mean, he's still good, but the Chiefs have been one of the best teams on taking risks on players.
Sure.
Trey Smith has a horrible history with blood clots, and you know, he's a top 50 pick all day, if not for the blood clots and the medical stuff. Teams should have never waited until the 6th round to pick him, though. Mm-hmm. And Kansas City has been very good at that. They picked up Tyreek Hill in the 5th round, who had his own concerns coming up. They've been really good at that, at knowing when enough is enough on a free fall on a guy.
Yeah.
And that's why they end up with these good players. Now, does it turn out weird sometimes? Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely it does. It's risk.
Yeah.
But you have to take risks sometimes in this game because you need the talent. And so it's a very difficult discussion to have. But I really think overthinking and look, GMs are not the only ones making decisions on these players. They have to pass by the owners in a lot of places other than Green Bay. And you have to take that in consideration too, because an owner may say, I'm not taking that risk with this guy. I'm not doing it.
Right.
And it's their call. So like that's part of the equation there that doesn't get talked about a lot. But I think it can look, Bill Belichick's one of the best defensive coaches of all time. Mm-hmm. There's no question about that. Mm-hmm. Bill Belichick, the GM, took a lot of guys off his board because of those concerns, those kinds of things. And he ended up with a small board a lot of times. And he took guys higher than they should have been. And it cost them at times, the lack of talent on their roster.
Yeah.
So,
well, and
yeah,
he's also the coach that took Aaron Hernandez. And I think that we're just quickly on the discussion about Belichick as a GM and the small board is maybe there was too much of a focus on how players did things that he asked players to do in his systems, and of too rigid of a conception of players' roles or what matters, and not being more open. Like you said, you're an instant on the couch all-star, Chad. Expand your horizons. Expand your horizons. Go ahead.
And there has to be that's why GM and coach need to work together, but they need to be separate.
Yeah. And sometimes clash, creative friction, and sometimes defer to each other and be like a marriage, like I'll take the L on this and I'll trust you because we are married. And like you said about saying things that end up being wrong, it's like, if you're not saying anything that has the potential to make you look ill-informed or foolish, then you're not saying anything interesting. You're not actually saying anything interesting if you're not leaving. I mean, if you're just like, well, but I'm going to stick my neck out and say this. So good for you.
Well, it is, but I don't want to fall into the trap that a lot of guys that have their own successful radio or TV shows do, where they say things to be interesting. God. But what I like to come up with are plausible scenarios that other people aren't talking about. And that's there's a big difference there. And the other thing is, you're right. You have to step out on a limb sometimes, but you have to really believe in what you're saying, because then you have to talk to teams later at some point, and they have to understand where your logic is. Yeah. And even when my editor says, "Are you sure you want to do this?" I will lay out in probably excruciating detail for him why I came up to this decision. And like, you have to have reasons for it. So it's not really to be interesting, but it's really to be the old gambling thing is fade the public. And I'm not just fading the public just to do that. But the fact is that things happen that we don't know about, and guys that succeed because even though they don't have a great 40 and even though they don't do this or do this, it happens. So I kind of look for those situations.
Yeah. Well, I like to say we're peeking through keyholes. Even like the Aaron Hernandez situation, as far as what they had insight or didn't have insight into him is off the field. But I think a word I would use is provocative. And I know provocative can be negative in a media context, but you're trying to provoke learning, you're trying to provoke insight, and you're really coming up with these scenarios to convey, like, this is what I've learned about this whole thing in the time I've been doing it. And this is like why you get your Matt Waldron RSP. Ping, there's another one. Because just by reading it, you will understand how he sees and processes football, which in and of itself is an education. And I think you do that with all the stuff that you're doing, and it's always revealing. It's always good. Okay, now we're going to go off the rails. And I guess I'll just start out with, man, you said passion. I love it. Passion, yes. Enthusiasm. People always ask my advice about breaking in or what have you. And if you're enthusiastic, if you're positive, if you're passionate, then that's an attractive quality to your work. And you should do the work for the love of the work, which obviously you do, Chad.
Right.
But what's something else other than football and mock drafts that you're passionate about?
Well, I've been a singer since I was a kid.
Ooh.
So that's something that I've been doing most of my life. I've picked up golf the last few years, so that's another thing. And I'm not a competitive guy, but it's just nice to be outside and be with friends and get exercise. So that's a really nice thing. And honestly, just being kind to people is sort of a passion of mine. Just doing things that are unexpected for other people. Just trying to make the world a better place. So,
man.
Beautiful.
It's a vitamin. Doing kind things, helping people is a vitamin for you. It's a vitamin for your soul. It's
vitamin
amazing.
K. Yeah.
It really is kindness, man. And golf, and you're the second person in 2 weeks on this show to say that golf is good because you take a walk outside with your friends. And disc golf is also good for that reason. But I want to talk about the singing thing, man. Wow. Yeah. Well, and it's good because you have more of like a Midwestern understated personality, but I'm sure a different part of you comes out as a singer. Like, who's your influences, or like when you say you're a singer?
Let me tell you who my favorite band is, and you'll love it. Queen.
Oh,
and Freddie Mercury can't be any more different.
He's 101. He's the GOAT.
Right?
He is the GOAT. I mean, as rock and roll singers go, that's it. Yeah.
But I'll tell you, I've seen them with Adam Lambert twice. I saw them twice on tour with Adam, and he is so good. Freddie's voice wasn't the same at the end, so he couldn't try a lot of the high notes. Adam does them all, and he's fantastic. And I'm so glad they tour. I also saw them with Paul Rogers a couple of times, and that's a different show. It's like a rock show, which was great. I mean, I really enjoyed it, but it's a different show. Yeah, I mean, just seeing Chess the Musical, which maybe some people know. It's like 40 years old. Most people don't know it. They might know the song One Night in Bangkok, which was big on the radio for a long time. That's going to be a revival in New York in the fall, supposedly. So I've already contacted like Aaron Nagler, my buddy over at GSET TV that I've known for years, because he's in New York. And I'm like, okay, we're coming because I need to, I need to see that show. And I talk with Jessica Smetana sometimes about Jesus Christ Superstar, because she's like the one person I know that actually listens to that in media. And like I would send her a voice of, like I'll send her a note being like, my mind is clear now, at last all too well. And I'll just do that, and she'll just laugh. But like that's fun stuff. So
beautiful.
I'd love to do it.
That's awesome. Thank you. And thank you for gracing us. I would not have asked you to sing, but thank you for gracing us.
It's funny. Like I did a bit. I was on with Fabiano and Sirius a couple of years ago, and he knows I'm a singer, and I had sent him some stuff. And he's like, hey, sing something for me. So I did a little of Journey something. 2 days later, I get on Jacksonville radio, and they play Faithfully as I come in, because they had heard me, doing that. So that's fine. I could be known for worse things.
Oh, it's wonderful. I mean, singing is wonderful, right? I mean, there's the old um Alan Watts, the 60s Buddhist
Yeah.
English guy, said something to the effect of like, he said something to the effect of, we think life is something, it's about something at the end, like retirement or heaven or something that you get at the end, but that's all wrong. Life is music, and you're supposed
Mm,
to sing or dance along with the music.
right. Right.
Right? So
Yep.
me, and I'm down here in New Orleans, man. I mean, you're about to see
Well,
what I'm
right.
passionate
That's
about.
it. Yeah.
I could go on and on and on and on and on
Yeah.
about music, even more longer than football. So singing is beautiful, and Freddie Mercury is beautiful. So let me ask you: is it because of the spirit of Freddie Mercury? I haven't seen Queen. I've never seen Queen, but I
Mhm.
haven't seen them with Adam Lambert. Does the crowd still get mesmerized? Like Freddie Mercury
Oh, yeah.
was like a mass hypnotist. So like the spirit of Freddie Mercury, is it in the room where like everybody's attention is
Absolutely.
completely on the music?
Absolutely. And they showed I think it was Love of My Life. They would actually put Freddie on the screen and he
Oh
would be the one singing and everybody loved it. I mean, everybody loved it. And Bohemian Rhapsody, they might put him at the end. I mean, he's part of the band. He's always going to be part of the band. It's just the way it is. But no, that's been my favorite band since I was like 8 years old. And I'm like old.
yeah,
Um, I remember
yeah.
buying import CDs in the mid 80s because they hadn't
Mhm.
created them yet for their older records. And I went and paid $25 a pop for them in like
Wow,
1986. That's not cheap,
right.
but
That's like a
like,
day's work. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I go right from the nursing home right to B-side records and buy these English imports because they're just so good and still
Mhm.
have them to this day. And it's been great. The whole English. I haven't been to the UK. I've been to Ireland, but I haven't been to British Isles yet. And I want to go just to see all the music stuff there from Beatles, the Who, and like all my
Oh
favorite
yeah,
bands are
yeah, yeah,
from there. So
yeah.
I can't wait to go there.
Yeah, and I mentioned because I'm New Orleans, the Beatles when they came to perform in New Orleans, they wanted to go see Fats Domino right away. They looked up to
Yeah,
Fats Domino,
yeah,
like they really, really looked up to Fats Domino.
yeah.
And my sister's favorite band was Queen, and I still have the
Oh,
record of our Queen live record from when we were kids. But
oh yes.
as a kid of that time, my favorite band was Kiss.
Okay.
Um, but still, I love Queen. I mean, how can you not appreciate Queen?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
remember like the soundtrack for Flash Gordon. Oh,
Yes,
like
absolutely.
like as a kid, like
Highlander.
gripping. And I was lucky enough to see David Bowie once.
Mm,
So lucky, so lucky. Like right
mm.
now, Chad, like images,
Yeah,
flashing of
yeah,
this. But one of the moments I saw him in 2004. One of the moments was, and his bass player, I don't know who his bass player was, who did Freddie Mercury's part, but Chad, they did Under Pressure,
yeah.
and it brought me to tears.
Oh,
It
I
brought
know.
me to tears. The
Yeah,
way that David Bowie and Freddie Mercury sing that song it's a prayer, really. It's a
yeah,
beautiful, beautiful prayer. And all the music you mentioned is about emotion and
yes,
it's theatrical, it's rock operas. And I have the Jesus Christ Superstar record when I was a kid too. That's incredible. If you haven't
yeah,
listened to Jesus Christ Superstar, folks,
yeah,
that's incredible. Jesus Christ
yeah,
Superstar is amazing.
yeah,
Talking to you is amazing, Chad. We could go on for hours and hours. I can't wait, and we'll have to do this every year now. And I hope you come down to New Orleans, and we'll go see some
yeah.
music.
Love that.
There's
Yeah,
all kinds of
absolutely.
stuff here, much more than just trad jazz. Although the trad jazz obviously is the best in the world.
Right, right.
And anyway, folks, and again, we'll be live. Check out everything Chad and Lance Airline at NFL.com. We'll be live. Matt Waldman and many others guests that you know and love will be back as always because it's draft one of our favorite times of year. It's one of our favorite times. Well, really all the time we love spending time with you because you're so classy.